Test, 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 test. Good. Test, 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 test. Good. Call this meeting in order. It's the City of Rhinelander Common Council. The agenda's been posted. The media has been notified. It's Monday, April 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Please call roll.
Frederickson,
Here.
Barnett,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Mikulowski,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Holt,
Here.
Daniel, Rossing.
All please stand.
The United States.
Miles, get back to you. No. They didn't have a clear answer. We can do this. All right. Good enough. Public comments as received by the mayor, the city clerk, or council members. First of all, I'd like to let the council know and the citizens out there, we received quite a few emails from pickleballers on the feeling of the fencing. That is to be discussed this week, even amongst Zach and Maureen. So we'll decide whether or not I put those into public record the next time, but I have no problem with that, or we do have those. I just did not collect them for this meeting. Anybody else receive any public comment? Eileen?
Hi, I received a letter today from Kyle Rogers, and he asked me to read it aloud to be entered into the record. My name is Kyle Rogers, and I'm writing this to voice my support for a skate park in Rhinelander. I've witnessed the great need for a skate park firsthand. I live downtown, and every night a group of skaters convene on the stairs behind BMO Harris Bank. It's pathetic that this is their option for a skate park at the moment, and frustrating to see no real progress made on this initiative over the past 10 years. I've spoken previously with some of the people who got the skate park in Stevens Point done. It took 15 years, but they stayed with it, gradually raised money, and finally it came to fruition. Imagine if Rhinelander had stayed on a similar trajectory back when this was a regular item on Parks Committee agendas, instead of letting it fall through the cracks. A skate park might already be a reality today, or at least very close to it. This is a no-brainer initiative. If you don't have a skate park, your city becomes the skate park. Thank you.
All right. First up on the list is Cheryl. Go ahead and stand up at the mic. You click it so it turns red. It's the button right in front. There you go, and I'll pull that a little bit closer. And your name and where you live.
Oh, my name is Cheryl Swan Edmonds, and I live in Rhinelander. On the outskirts, I live on the outside of town. And I moved here in July 26th. And I lived here in my early 20s, and with my oldest daughter, who is now 30. And I had my twins at the hospital here, and then we moved back to Madison, and then I had 2 other boys, so I have 5 children, and I'm a widow, and I had a lot of life changes about 3.9 years ago when we lost the man of the family, and so I resigned from my position for 18 years with some amazing people, and good Lord claimed me and gave me strong spirit and showed me a pathway which I call Monarch. And Monarch has been in progress and development for over 3 years now. I've done a lot of traveling and made a lot of sacrifices for my kids and for Monarch. And so I'm happy to be here. I think that the plan for me being here, even tonight, it comes through the power of the universe of the people. And I feel a due diligence to let you know that I'm here. And what I do through Monarch, I have no services available to offer right now, but it's educational empowerment, insightfulness for future prosperity. The change of today will be the change in tomorrow. And so it's been a lot of a work in progress, but I'm in the final stages. I have a few other things to complete, and then I'll be excited to be offering that. So,
Thank you.
Cheryl Swan Edmonds.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Jaden Roberts. You want all three of you up there like last time? That's great. It's Jaden Roberts, Gavin Garrow, and Ava Karila, who wasn't able to be here last time.
Hello, we are here with a group called Over It, and our goal is to eventually someday have a skate park in Rhinelander. And so I'll pass it off to Jaden with some ideas of what that might look like, which you guys have images.
Yes, you guys do have the images, and they are very low quality. I'm sorry about that. But I recently found that last night on a website. It was a project for a different town. It's a very basic design, which is perfect for Rhinelander. It's nice, small, and it's really cheap. The original project I was looking at before would have costed around $300,000. This one will cost $120,000 around, which could leave us a little bit of extra funding for maybe adding new features to it and changing it up a bit to how we would like it. And another thing is with the funding, how we're going to get it is I have got in contact with the Tony Hawk Foundation, and they are open to us to give us a donation, but we need to reach a 25% funding goal from local community for them to give us anything for that.
Okay. The other portion, if you don't want to talk now, we cannot speak back to you like I am doing. But it's on discussion item where I can invite you back up for time to speak at that time if there's specific questions, if you feel okay with that.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
let's do that.
Then you can sit down. Thank you. Moving on, we have a,
I have two.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I missed you earlier.
I also got an email from Kyle. Eileen read it, which is great because I misplaced it. So I'm happy that was the case. I have two others here. One from Bob Cirilli, constituent. Both of these are constituents of mine. Both are speaking on support for a skate park. The first one from Bob. Hi, David. I'm requesting that this comment be read aloud at tonight's council meeting. My name is Bob Cirilli. I am a constituent in your district, and I'm writing to show my support for a skate park to be built in Rhinelander. Whenever I talk with area residents about things to do in Rhinelander, one topic that comes up constantly is how we are missing a skate park. Many of those that remember the previous skate park are now adults and would like to see a skate park available for their children. I ask the council to support a skate park in Rhinelander, as I think it would make for a great addition to the public resources available in our community. Thank you. The second is from Shelley Vandervest. Hi, Dave. I hope this message finds you well. My daughter and several other young people in our West Side neighborhood are getting very into skateboarding. Unfortunately, we live in a hilly area with inadequate skate conditions and rough pavement, especially for those just learning. My own 10-year-old daughter would love nothing more than a comfortable place to practice. When I was not much older, my friends resorted to illegally using business parking lots after the already inadequate park behind the police station closed. Skaters aren't dying out of a lack of interest, but a lack of space. I do not want to see them turn to petty crime, nor do I want the practice to die out. I would love an in-town park to take my kids to, and speaking with other community members, there is a need. Thank you for reading this, Shelley Vandervest. I would like to add one real quick thing, Chris, that in the almost exactly 3 years I've been on council, this is the most energy I've seen out of my district.
Excellent. I'll take those. You turn in yours also? Okay. Thank you. All right. Now, if there's nothing else, that does conclude the public comment part. We will move on to presentations. I'll look up one more time. Sean Lentz from Ellers on the 2021 borrowing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I have a presentation that I emailed to the city, but I could also share my screen if that would work best to present this to the full council.
Yes.
All right. Let me get that up. I think I need, Mayor, the host to allow me to share my screen.
Tara?
Tara, hit the arrow, the up arrow. There we go. Sean, are you able to share now?
I'm still getting the host disabled
Okay,
participant
Tara, go
screen, but
to
I'll-
the stop. Hit the stop share, and then there's a little arrow next to the share screen. Nope, there's a little. There you go. Multiple participants. There you go. Now he should be able to. No, you don't need to
Yep.
share. You click stop share, Tara. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Does everyone see the title page at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, Mayor and Council. In talking with Zach and with Wendy, they thought it would be a good idea for me to just spend a few minutes reintroducing the city to the debt situation for general obligation debt outstanding. The idea would be as a segue into discussions about the debt issuance and finance plan for 2021. So where I'd like to start out is on the analysis of the city's general obligation borrowing capacity. Generally speaking, the city has used general obligation borrowing for, I put it, street, facilities, economic development projects primarily over the years, and utility projects, large projects for the sewer and or the water utility have been financed with revenue bonds that are repaid by the rates and charges that the utilities charge. General obligation debt is paid back primarily by the tax levy, but as we'll discuss here shortly, it's also paid back by other funding sources, tax increment district, and the premier resort area tax. The state does put a limit on how much general obligation debt a city can issue. The limit is 5% of the equalized value of the entire city. Rhinelander has an equalized value of about 584 million. So 5% of that number, or your borrowing capacity, is about 29 million. At the beginning of this year, you have a little more than 15 million outstanding in general obligation debt. And that leaves you with just under 14 million in borrowing capacity available to you using general obligation debt. The chart, the red line on the chart, is your borrowing capacity, that 29 million. And it's shown on this chart over a period from 21, this year, 2021, to 2039 as remaining constant. Hopefully and likely that red line will increase over time as the city experiences some valuation growth. The blue bars are representative of the existing debt and the gradual repayment of that debt over time, again from 2021 to 2039, when the existing debt you have, general obligation debt, is fully extinguished. So this was just a chart to give you a sense as to where you are now. It doesn't include any new indebtedness in the future. Now, this next chart looks at your general obligation debt a little bit differently. This chart is looking at it in the context of the annual payments of principal and interest that Wendy is responsible for. And it also looks at the levy that is required of your general fund in order to repay the debt. So the blue bars are representative of the total principal and interest payments. This year, in 2021, the payment is a little bit over $2,120,000. Now, of that $2,120,000, approximately $900,000 of it is part of your general fund levy. So it's spread over the tax base of the city. The rest of it is paid by other funding sources. So the difference between the $2,120,000 and the $900,000 is paid by tax increment districts, which are special taxing districts in the city that generate revenue and do projects to try to promote development and redevelopment. And it's also, a good chunk of that is paid back by the Premier Resort Area tax, which I think everyone is familiar with and can be used for certain types of infrastructure projects that the city engages in. One other quick thing about this chart, the mill rate, which is your total levy divided by the equalized value of the city, for this year, 2021, is a little bit over 11 mills for the city of Rhinelander. You may wonder, well, how much is our debt payments of that? It's about $1.61 out of that $11.05. And when I put it that way, $11.05 and $1.61, it's per $1,000 of value on a property that's being taxed. So this chart gives you a good indication of where we sit currently, and we'll talk about potential future debt and its impact here in a minute. Before doing that, I did want to, and this chart has lots of numbers on it, but I struggled with the best way to show it. What I wanted to impart on the council is how much of your debt is paid by these other funding sources. So these are a list of some of the outstanding debt that the city has from 2010 through 2019. And the payments you see on this spreadsheet are annual payments of principal and interest that are made from tax increment districts or the golf course fund or the little bit water and wastewater. The biggest payment sources are tax increment district number 9, which was a large tax increment district that we did major infrastructure projects for in 2013. And the Premier Resort Area tax is also a large funding source. And again, these are the revenues that reduce what we have to levy to pay the general obligation debt back. When the city issues general obligation debt, your commitment to the purchasers is that you, if you have to, you'll levy a tax to pay it, but you do have the ability to use these other revenue sources. And annually, when putting the budget together, Wendy spends time, and we work with her on this to review these other funding sources, the tax increment district, the premier resort area tax, to ensure that we have every expectation that they'll be able to make their payment in the coming year so that the city doesn't have to increase the levy to pay a debt that isn't able to be paid by these other funding sources. This sort of a situation is very common with communities all throughout the state of Wisconsin, to have debt paid by the levy and also by other funding sources. Now, this next chart is one that city staff has been working on from a planning standpoint over recent years. A targeted goal going back a number of years has been to try to maintain the city's debt levy at around $900,000 a year. The blue bars that you see on this chart are the existing levy projection for existing debt. So you'll see in 21 and 22, the payments are about the same. And then in 23 and 24 and then beyond, the blue bars gradually fall. And that was by design to provide the opportunity for the city on an every other year basis to issue additional general obligation debt to fund approximately $1 million in capital projects, capital improvements over a 2-year basis. So with that in mind, what we've incorporated into this chart is preliminary debt issues of around $1 million to fund $1 million in general fund general fund capital projects over a 2-year period, 500 1 year potentially and 500,000 the next year. In green is a 10-year repayment of approximately $1 million loan to fund $1 million in projects over the 2021 and 22 year. And then in red is the same type of issue done in 2023. And finally in purple, again, similar issue, $1 million to be paid back in 10 years, issued in 2025. The way the debt is being repaid is in a manner that allows the overall debt payment of the city each year to be around $900,000 in principal and interest, thereby keeping the debt levy portion of your total budget approximately at the same number in each budget year, and this example through 2027, from 21 through 27. Now, what could change this chart? If we were to need to do more than $1 million every other year, and we did not have other funding sources like the tax increment district or the premier resort area tax, that may have an impact and require us to revisit that targeted total debt levy amount of $900,000. But for planning purposes, this is what we've been using to project out and to target future financings for the city. Now, timeline-wise, as I've talked with Zach and with Wendy, always subject to change based on the direction of the city council, but the plan was to introduce the existing debt situation for this to the city today, and to talk about a little bit about the past planning that's been done, targeting that $900,000 a year in total debt levy with existing and new debt factored into it. In May, if the council is at a point and ready to proceed with capital project financing for 2021 and 2022, we would have potentially agenda items to talk about and potentially initial resolutions to get the process started. That would lead to a potential sale of debt in 2021, where the council would review competitive bids, and then the funding to pay for project costs would be available sometime late that month or early July. Other things that we'll be bringing forward to the council, just to finish up before any questions that you might have, is I've been working with city staff, primarily Wendy, on some potential debt refinancing as well. Interest rates have been very low. And so we've found a couple targets of issues that have interest rates that could generate some savings and may make some sense. I'd like to discuss more about the specifics of those with you in the coming meetings. And finally, there's a couple other issues, particularly related to TID number 9 that have a prepayment date later this year in 2021 that we will also be discussing with the council as potential refinancing or prepayment debt issues where we can prepay early because of the success of tax increment district number 9. Mayor, I appreciate everyone's patience as I went through the material. At this point, I know you have a very full agenda tonight, but I'd like to open it up to any questions if that's okay.
Absolutely. Any questions?
Can we get copies of this?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. Thank you, Sean.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Have a good rest of the evening.
Whoa. Eileen got in on the last minute.
Oh, sure.
Just to put it on the record, can you refresh our memories as to which district TID number 9 is, where it is located in the city?
That district is the print pack district.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas, in federal fiscal year 2018, 4.3 million reports were made of child protective services. And whereas child abuse and neglect are serious problems affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. Whereas our children are our most valuable resource and will shape the future of the city of Rhinelander. Whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for the victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate the risk and promote social, emotional, and development well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong, thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase the awareness about child abuse and contribute and promote social and emotional well-being of the children and the families of a safe, stable, nurturing environment. Whereas prevention remains the best defense in our children's and families, now therefore, I, Christopher Frederickson, Mayor of the City of Rhinelander, hereby do proclaim the month of April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Rhinelander. In witness of thereof, I hereby unto my hand cause the seal of the City of Rhinelander to be affixed to the 12th day of April 2021. Thank you. Child abuse is something that I grew up with, as far as we had 21 foster brothers and sisters that were affected by child abuse. So I do know the lasting effects of this, and I also know that the survivability, the human spirit, and the willingness of our young youth to actually be proactive in their own environment is important. So I appreciate it. But I'm going to give this to Carrie. Thank you. I'd encourage everybody to wear blue, but of course I don't have blue on, so we'll go past that. Mayor's comments, PFAS, well 7 and 8 work session, April 14th. That will be here in City Hall. Miles Alexander will be helping us if he's able. Otherwise, Zach and I will be going through the chronological order of where we've come to this point, possible decisions that are looming for council, so that you're caught up on some of the background information for what's going on. So 5 p.m. Excellent. Meeting minutes. I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from March 22nd, 2021 as presented.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Monthly reports from departments. Basically, due to the length of our thing, I'm going to ask if anybody here has an add-on to their monthly department. Go ahead and raise your hand, and then I'll call on you that way. I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to accept monthly reports from departments as presented.
Holt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just going to give one quick comment. I think I mentioned in my administrator's report the Laserfish software, and I just want to call out our finance and our inspection assistant worked together as a team to come up with our first digital form in the Laserfish portal. So kind of exciting. It's a water service form. You can find it on the city's website under water. But so we'll be sharing updates periodically about that platform. That's also our records retention platform. So it's kind of exciting to try to get more customer self-service forms out there. So good little win in that area.
And actually, before we move on, I'm going to ask Tom to stand up at the mic and make an announcement.
So I think everybody already has heard, it's been in the papers, I did turn in my retirement paperwork. June 4th will be my last day with the city. I'd like to thank the city for allowing me to serve the community for nearly 22 years.
Just stand there for a second. We want to thank you as a council and as a city for your dedication to building the program and the department to where it is now as the assistant chief and as the acting interim chief. We appreciate every moment that you did in service, duty, and honor for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Reports from boards, commissions, and committees will handle the same way. They're in your packet.
I'll make a motion to accept the reports of the boards, commissions, and committees as submitted in our packet.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I didn't see a planning commission report. How did that come?
It was, Gerald, it was distributed separately. I believe I sent it to everyone in an email on Friday afternoon with some other attachments. You may want to just double check your email.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I'll abstain from voting. I was not at the plan meeting, so.
It's okay. You can accept the minutes as they are.
Okay.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, on to introduction to new business. We have a new format somewhat as doing this, and that's discussion material. And then in the next part is actionable items. Now, we post the beginning paragraph that says anything we discuss here is possible for action. But for transparency, this gives us that option to do the two parts. There are 3 items in 10 that we will discuss first, if it's okay and pleases the council, and then that are not listed as actionable items. And the rest of the discussion will wait until we get down to the actionable parts. Is that agreeable? All right. So starting out with F, discuss the contract with pyrotechnics for the 4th of July fireworks. Zach, I'll have you speak on this.
Sure. So our vendor is unchanged this year from last year, Pyrotechnics. I don't have a contract from them as of yet, so this is just an informational item. We've tentatively slotted in the 4th for the fireworks show. I know last year we shifted the date because it came available, and because we had that date from last year, we kind of have a first right of refusal opportunity to retain that day. We've put the chamber on notice, and it sounds like the gentleman that does the parade is also working on his special events application associated with that day. So that's just an FYI for all of you, and we'll bring the council forward, the contract forward when we receive it.
Any further discussion? Because the 4th is not a weekend day. That's the other reason it sits here. Yes. Well, it's a
Do
weekend.
we have an estimate on cost for that, Zach?
If my memory serves me correct, I'm looking at Wendy. I felt like it's 15,000. I think it was maybe 3,000 higher than previous years, which was 12. It allows us to have a little bit more expanded show. And I think we had the donor last year that stepped forward, so we budgeted the same amount that we had spent last year in this year's budget.
All right, moving on. Discussion of the skate park. Zach, do you want to speak on this at all? Just
Sure,
to
yeah, I
kick it
can
off?
briefly. Obviously, it's been a topic of quite a bit of discussion, and the intent in putting it on the agenda tonight was to allow the council to have some conversation and discuss, and then possibly send staff in a direction that you may, if you feel that there's consensus and want to move forward on it. So I think that's pretty much the purpose that I see at this point.
Tom?
Can we invite Alex to speak on this? Alex is the project manager of the Houghton, Michigan skate park project. And
Absolutely.
I asked him to come here and speak to his experience with his skate park.
Alex?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thank you everyone for having me. Thank you, Thomas, for inviting me, and for the OVRIT group for putting together the skate park project. That's awesome that you guys are doing that. To speak to my experience a little bit more, so I headed up the Houghton, Michigan skate park project, as in conceiving, fundraising, contracting our contractor, heading up design meetings, stuff of that sort. I personally am a skateboarder of 21 years now. I've worked in skateboarding for a lot of that time. I worked at Thrasher magazine briefly, and I currently live in Detroit, where I volunteer at a skateboarding nonprofit. So I'm about as deep into skateboarding as you can get. I've skated a lot of parks in a lot of states, and I can say with confidence that the best skate parks, of which I'm very satisfied with how our skate park turned out in Houghton, Michigan, that the best skate parks are built with concrete by reputable contractors. I didn't see the design that was suggested, the sample design that was suggested, if it was concrete or not. But when Thomas Burnett reached out to me, he mentioned that material was a matter of concern, that it wasn't sure if concrete or anything else was the way to go. I can say that concrete is definitely the way to go. I've skated wooden skate parks, I've skated metal skate parks, and whatever cost you may save in that time, in a small time frame of building it, you're going to be paying for it over time with extra maintenance for what it takes to resheet, to reform skate park amenities, skate park items, obstacles inside of it. It's going to take regular maintenance, and more than just regular maintenance, is going to take regular supervision. There's going to be, if at any point the skateboarders who are in attendance who are working on it right now might move away or they might move on, you have to make sure that there is someone constantly supervising the skate park, paying attention to the skate park to bring these items to city council forward on if you're going to need regular maintenance. The beauty about concrete skate parks is that typically you don't need much, if any, maintenance at all. We are, let's see, I want to say 2 to 3 years, when was it built? 2018. So we're 3 years deep into the Houghton, Michigan skate park being built, and we haven't had any issues so far. Marquette Skate Park in Marquette, Michigan got built in 2014, I believe, and they're still doing well. In the Detroit area where I live, where I live currently at least, there are a lot more skate parks around here that have been here a lot longer, all concrete, all doing well. And a lot of these contractors, in addition to just good construction, will have a 1 to 2 year warranty a lot of the time. There's a skate park here in Detroit, a big $1 million project that got built that the contractors came through just last summer, I believe it was, and did a little bit of maintenance here, just some resealing of cracks, some maintenance of pool coping, but nothing particularly big. So as long as you have the right contractor, concrete will last for a long time.
Thank you. Nonprofits, if you could forward on to Tom, if you have his email, different portions of skate parks that need to be in consideration for city council and or park directors. I'm pretty sure you have some experience with some of the policies that drive them and other issues. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I can pass along what I can. So the way we designed ours is that the way we fundraise for ours is that we work through a fiscal sponsor called the Q&A Community Foundation, which sponsored a number of other funds, other local funds. So we were able to secure a lot of grants that way. And then after fundraising, we gifted it from the community foundation to the city. So it is a city park that is under the same, any insurance issues, anything of that effect, it's treated the same as a city tennis court, city playground, anything of the sort like that. It's covered under that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
No problem.
Ladies
Happy
and
to
gentlemen,
answer
you want
any
to get
questions as well if you have them.
any questions for Alex? If you'd like to get back up to the mic, go ahead. I'm definitely the mayor that doesn't know how to say no, for one. Everybody laughs. But one of the things I really appreciate is when people take something and they hold it, and especially when they have passion about something. With that, I'm going to welcome you to adulthood, because adulthood comes with projects, responsibilities, and planning. It comes with meetings. It comes with deadlines and ideas of fiscal responsibility. I don't doubt that you are up for that challenge, which is the cool part. You've shown the initiative to be able to get up and speak about it. What council will want is that we heard from somebody who started 15 years ago on a skate park that's no longer there. We've also heard stories of a wooden one that no longer can function. I guess what I'd like to discuss with you, or continue to discuss even as this plan goes forward, is deadlines and responsibilities. And what that amounts to is, as we put something in process, we need to be able to follow up with that. The passion is obviously yours, and that's cool. Ours is our job as government is to make sure it can happen. That is our job, but it takes a combination of both groups to make that happen. So, do you have any questions of us as far as next steps?
Yes. What exactly are the next steps going forward? What are our options? What comes next?
Yeah, I think one of the first steps would be for the council to have some consensus about location. That allows us to then begin some feasibility analysis, check the soil conditions for the project that you're looking to pursue, as well as a scale, thinking about the scale, the size. I'm pulling up the contractor that did the skate park in Houghton, and they've done maybe half a dozen of them. So just thinking about a project budget, so that way you can begin fundraising efforts and the community engagement as associated with that. So I would say those are probably the three, if I can count those three steps.
That's why I hired him. We don't sit on something for 15 years anymore. We work to get it done.
I commend you. A personal story, where I'm from in Wisconsin Rapids, my class did the skate park there. They worked with the police department because there was a lot of issues with skateboarders and skaters in the community using community assets. So it's really a cool thing to see, and how many years later that thing is still one of the most popular assets in the community. So I think commend you guys for getting involved and taking responsibility for this.
Tom?
Speaking of location, where are your guys' plans to put the skate park?
We've heard talk about it on our Facebook page. There was someone who posted something about us having permission already from someone to build a skate park on or near West Side Park, because we know it was a part of the Hodig Park plans, but we haven't heard much about it still. So we were thinking more by West Side Park because, that's I'd say it's pretty much center of Rhinelander. Anyone can get to it. It's like a kid's neighborhood, so.
Yeah, I heard something about that, like right behind the BMX track is where they were like planning, because there's like a big field back there. And so like West Side is like, that's like right next to West Side, so that's what.
Excellent. Once again, we'll do a feasibility look when it comes to that. It has to do with the soil, whether or not it'd be too wet. You know, there's some moisture issues in West Park. Obviously, we've seen the puddles for a while, but we will do that.
I think Dave had his hand up.
I'm
first.
sorry.
Hi. Yeah, I had talked to Jeremy Biolo about why it was taken out of the initial Hodag Park plan, and he I'm the one who posted that with regard to his statement was that years ago council had already approved that site for of West Side Park for that. I've gotten a number of different comments from various community members that I can't really place exactly who said what at this point because it was scattered over the course of several very turbulent months. That talked about the advantages and disadvantages of both of those sites. Jeremy had said, and he is, I welcome him to correct me if I ever mischaracterize what he said, that there was some hydrology issues with putting a skate park at Hodag Park, which is why it was removed from the initial plan. That in terms of feasibility, West Side Park would be better. I've also heard some various comments from community members saying no, Hodag Park would be better in terms of the placement in the city, the accessibility, and the neighborhood itself. And so I mean my own agenda or objectives there, you know, a policy and procedure guys. I'm not tied to either one. It's advantages and disadvantages. If council's already approved for West Side, well, we've got some steam in that direction, right? Obviously, we would have to revisit the feasibility of it in terms of how wet it is, whatnot. So that was my update.
Eileen?
Hi guys. I've actually made a few comments on your page as well. I'm really impressed with how organized you guys really are. So that's great. The question I had is originally when you came to us the last time, you mentioned that it was going to be around $300,000, which actually sounded feasible to me. And now you said you've reduced it down to $125,000. My concern is that you've gone from concrete to something else. Is that what you were thinking, or?
The original plan that I had before for the $300,000 plan was bigger and it had much different things in it. But like I said, I recently found this where it's built different and it's a little bit smaller, so it's going to be cheaper.
Okay,
It's still made out of concrete.
It's still made out of concrete.
Yes.
That's great. It's hard to tell from the picture. One thing to think about is if you can raise the funds to get what you want, don't compromise. You know what I'm saying? Really work towards what you want. If we can't quite get there, then plan it so you can expand it. So really look into that kind of thing when you're planning it, okay, guys? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex wanted to add something.
Yeah, so to put it in perspective a little bit more, we spent about a little over $200,000 on the Houghton, Michigan Skate Park project. That's not necessarily $2 or $225 cash. That's a lot of in-kind donations, stuff like discounted concrete, donated landscaping, We had a rebar manufacturer in town as well who gave us a significant discount donation. And that our skate park is about as small as you can get while still serving a number of people. The issue, one of the toughest part about building a skate park is keeping the design in the place you want it to be. The way skate parks need to be designed, they need to have a flow to ensure that as many people as possible can use it at the same time without running into each other. I've seen $500,000-$600,000 skate parks that can only serve a few people at a time. Ferndale, Michigan is one of them. A recent project, and I've seen much smaller skate parks that can serve a lot of people at one time. So I wouldn't recommend going any less than $225,000 for that for a skate park project. The Tony Hawk Foundation, currently named the Skate Park Project, formerly known as the Tony Hawk Foundation, they have a guide on their website, and they typically price skate parks at ballpark figure around $40 to $50 per square foot, I think is what they're at right now. So ours is, so Houghton, Michigan Skate Park is $225,000. I can't remember quite exactly what the square footage is. And Marquette Skate Park is the same cost as well. So I think those are, as far as the size of Rhinelander is pretty comparable to Houghton, Michigan. And I think that's a good absolute minimum figure to work with.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, I would absolutely second what Eileen just said. With enough energy and creativity, the funds are going to be there. The in-kind donations and support from the community are going to be there. I would agree with, don't compromise on what you want, and also don't compromise on things like material. And I was happy to hear that it's still made out of concrete. We want something that will last a long time and that can be maintained over a long time, because as tragic as may sound, you are going to grow up, and other people will come and take your place, and in terms of maintaining, utilizing that space and maintaining it. So something that will last will save the city, save us as a community a lot in the long run.
Once again, I'd like to welcome you to adulthood, which has a lot to do with the actual work that goes into it. That being the case, congratulations, your voice is heard. So it'll be something that we'll look at. Be patient. Do not sacrifice also for instant gratification. If it could be built this year and it can't be done right, be okay with the fact that it might take a year. All right. Tom?
I just wanted to remind Alderperson David Holt that Tony Hawk is still skating. So growing up doesn't necessarily mean you won't use the park.
All right.
One thing.
Yeah.
Oh, let this gentleman talk first.
So I was kind of wondering, and I think you guys would be wondering the same question too. What kind of support can we see from the city moving forward other than just kind of putting it into action? What can we see as assistance? Because I guess we don't really know what we need to do.
The first thing I'm going to ask is before you leave here, definitely have your names and your numbers down, and then another responsible party too, so that Zach can be in contact with you about setting up a timeline, a progression of what needs to happen, how things get built, so that there can be an understanding. So yeah, basically what we need right now is your information. I know we have some of it from speaking, but so that you can set up a meeting with him and start moving forward with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I don't want to speak for everybody on the council, but I don't think anybody here is saying no to having a skate park in the city. I think we all think that's a good idea. It's a matter of how to get that done and how we can fundraise for that. My personal opinion is West Side Park would be a great spot. It's underutilized. We have the BMX track there already. I think it would be a good fit. So whatever we need to try and do some actionable items for the future to look at land use in that area, I think we can do.
For your, I know from youthful eyes, it's like, okay, what does that mean? That means here in the next week or so, you'll be contacted either from Zach after you turn it in or not to set up a meeting with then what the plans look like as far as moving forward. You'll bring forth your goals, your wishes, your dreams, and then we'll put together a plan that makes it a reality. That's the job of government, is to govern as closely as how people live their lives, and you live your lives as skaters. So our job is to make sure that a skate park happens if it's feasible. Parts of those constraints are budgetary and otherwise, so there's going to be twists and turns during this time, but it's definitely not going to be 15 years, and it's not going to be overlooked based on your passion, not necessarily based on ours, but based on yours. So be ready to persevere.
Okay.
Yes.
I would like to say something. I'm like very thankful for you guys being so willing to do this, and like it's just, I've been skating for 6 years now, and I've been kicked out by cops more times than I could even think, and like it's just that you can't stop skating. You have to keep skating. So having a skate park here would literally be the best thing ever.
Thank you. All right, you can sit down.
Thank you.
You can click that button off. Thank you. All right, moving on. Discussion the scope of, sorry, Alex?
Hey, sorry, just brief a little bit. You mentioned next steps of what to take. So I would say the first steps of what to take would be a means to which to fundraise. So what we did is we worked through a local community foundation in order to be legally recognized as a 501c3 nonprofit in order to be able to get funding from there. You'll be getting a lot of this funding from grants is going to be the primary source from which you're doing it, which you're applying for. As you mentioned, the Tony Hawk Foundation. I would recommend looking through any other local foundation, health-based foundations, youth-based foundations, physical health foundations, a lot of sources. Anything that skate park can be characterized as in the same area as a park, playground, places that get funding for those, they can do that. It can be recognized as a sports place, any other kind of funding for that, creative arts, anything. So first thing you'd want to do is set up a means of which to get donation. That might be through the city, in which case that I wonder if that'd be up to you there, or through a foundation / nonprofit as we have done with ours. Next step, I think you've taken a lot of the steps. So congratulations to you on those as far as looking for a potential location, looking for potential designs. Those are the kind of things that get people excited. When they see designs of where it could be, feel free to take photos, videos of our skate park as well, to give an example of what a skate park looks like, because a skate park might look like a roller coaster to someone, but that's not what it looks like to you necessarily. So any sources like that are what get people excited to get behind you to go from there. Other sources would be to look for funding, look for what grants to go through, look for local donors who might be interested in doing it, work on events, fundraising events. Of course, now with COVID might not be the ideal time for events, hopefully less soon, but that'll be where your funding is going to be. So any place you can get your ducks aligned in one place, that looks good on a grant application. If you apply for a grant and say, we want to build a skate park, it's not quite as strong as if you say, we want to build a skate park that looks like this for this much money in this place with these people using it. So any place you can get aligned with all of the stuff that you have aligned already, that stuff is another great step, which you've taken forward for already. The other would be finding a contractor. That's going to be later down the line. That wouldn't be an initial step, but you want to look for the right contractor. And the difficult part that I would say is that there are a lot of bad skate park contractors. I have no affiliation with any fund or any contractor of the sort. The Tony Hawk Foundation does, so they won't tell you this. I will tell you this. Do not use American Ramp Construction. If you whisper skate park project into an easterly wind, they will find you. They will give you a bid. It will be less than the other bids, and it will be a much worse skate park than the other skate parks. Don't use that one. There are a handful of other great contractors. We used Spawn Ranch in Houghton, which is also what Marquette used. There's Rhinelander Skate Parks, which is one of the oldest and longstanding ones. Why am I missing a handful?
Hey, Alex.
Evergreen is another one. Not my. I don't know that I'd recommend Evergreen. They tend to specialize in transition-oriented parks rather than street-oriented parks. My guess is you guys are looking for more of a street-oriented park. Yeah, those are good ones. There are a handful of other ones as well. I think Site Design is another one.
Excuse me,
there's a handful
Alex?
more. I can send you resources from
Alex, can we get this group in touch with you and you can help them out with some of this stuff? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
With the
Fantastic.
champion for their group, Tom Barnett. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he'll get you in touch and have a planning session. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
No problem.
All right, moving on. Discuss the scope of the initial phase of improvements to the Hodag Park. And actually, if you want to leave, you can leave. You do not have to sit through the next 2 hours of a mundane meeting that has to do it. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah. Hey, there's no reason to torture them all at once. Yeah, Tom. Tom, we haven't welcomed you into adulthood yet. All right, moving on. Discuss the scope of the initial phases of improvement in Hodag Park. As you know, we have a Hodag Parks plan that started even the skateboarders, because when parts got scratched, they took notice and said, "Hey, wait," which is cool. That being the case, we also have spent about 1.5 years now on our Hodags plan, vetting it between the community and whatnot. And now it's to the point where we look to get it into movement to implement some of these parts. As we do that as a city and we look to do it, we knew all along we were never going to finance the whole Hodag Parks plan. We talked to Sean Ellers today, and we're not going to take the $10 million and put it all in the park. That's just not going to happen. So that being the case, being fiscally responsible, how do we move forward with this plan, implement it, and make sure things happen? That being the case, I'll let Zach talk at this point.
So some background, we've had some meetings with the Rhinelander Community Foundation, as well as taken input from the public, and obviously you've all participated in the master planning exercise. At this stage, if we're looking to kind of take a next action step, similarly to the discussion we just had about the skate park, it would be to determine what would that initial scope include. That will give us some opportunity to get in motion with an engineer, likely to help us do some cost estimates, as well as figure out some more of the feasibility questions that might be in existence. Additionally, we have that CDBG close money that includes replacement docks, replacement trail, the recreational trail in the park, as well as some other concrete paths for ADA accessibility. And so we'd like to consider whether or not we can implement like a phase 1 in accordance with that project. So we've got one contract, one contractor, those types of things aligned. So I guess at this point, we'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think are some of the real near-term scope? And then we can come back and explore cost a little bit further as well.
Tom, go ahead.
I'm wondering, would it be logical to put out something to the community asking what they want to see, since they're the ones who will be using it the most? I mean, the entire community. I understand we represent our constituents and we can ask and all that, but a lot of times we won't get emails back or anything. But I think something that can be, maybe a one of those things you have multiple choice things.
Survey.
There had been
A poll. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the effort. I don't remember the year. I want to say it was 2 years ago or so. The Parks Advisory, there was some engagement sessions that also identified some priorities, and I think that might be a place I can send that around to everybody again. I think it pretty clearly spells out what the community wants. Now, one might argue that preferences have changed a little bit, or maybe it didn't get as full representation as maybe one would have liked, those types of questions. But I can send that out too, because it did identify some of the near-term priorities for Hodag in particular.
Eileen?
Just initially, I have heard from several constituents that they're happy to hear about the ADA compliance and the ADA upgrades. One of the things they are asking for is an ADA playground. So some playground equipment that does have the specialized swings and those sorts of things made for wheelchairs and or special needs children.
Ryan.
Hey, thank you.
I'm not sure how this is supposed to go.
Yeah, I think it's time for the city to take a lead on this. I think, Tom, that's a good idea to pull. I think we've put together a master plan for the parks. We know what we want to put in there. But I would like to move this forward. I don't want to sit on this year. I mean, if we could do a project late summer, early fall to break ground on something and do that, I think we should. And I think with the borrowing coming up, I think it would be a good idea to take maybe 10% of that, $100,000, and put the city's foot forward, and do something like a pavilion or what's the other word? The amphitheater, pavilion or amphitheater area, and kick off this project with that, and then hopefully that snowballs into some other good stuff at Hodag Park. So I would like to make a motion. I know this is on introduction to new business, but it's not on the action items section. But I would like to make a motion to direct our city administrator to, put out an RFP for costs, and to be able to use the money. I guess this isn't part of my motion, but to be able to use the CDBG close money for the stuff that's already coming in for the piers and stuff like that. But the motion would be to direct the administrator to send out a request for proposals, cost items for an initial scope of phase 1 for Hodag Park improvements.
Holt, I will second that, and the reason I had my hand up was to fully support what Ryan was saying. We did have a very successful listening session. I remember the maps set up on easels and lots of people coming through. It was a nice, fairly festive atmosphere, actually, and we have asked, and that's why we have the plan that we have. As we move forward, people will, like with the skate park not being in that plan, people will come and let us know if something is going in a direction that they would like to provide input into. But I'm completely with Ryan. We need to get some things. We need to get ground broken on some of this work. And it's going to be a long project. That's a big park. There are a lot of things in it that we want, and so it's not going to happen all at once. And as we put in each phase, it may adjust. It'll adjust, and people will make their voices known and opinions known on how it's working and how it's progressing. Thanks.
Tom?
I will say that even though I'm completely in favor of putting a poll out to find out what people truly want, just talking to people over time and stuff, I do know there is a large interest in wanting that band shell. So I think that should be a priority as far as one of the first things to be looked at.
When it comes to priorities, sometimes too, it's not based on the wish list. It's based on the structure of how things can happen. Also, the plan obviously has an idea scope to keep the vision of the water there and some of the other things. Being able to do it in this way, if it came back where the engineers said, "Listen, this doesn't make sense to do it here. To do this other part is whatever," we can make those adjustments. But it's just a matter of far as getting things moving when it comes to the implementing of it. As Ryan said, we are in a borrowing year, so it's advantageous. We have some community support. We have the buy-in into the totality of the plan. So if this fits into the logistics of engineering, I also agree that we should move forward. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? I didn't know if it was the dramatics of Ryan now passed on to Dave, or but I don't know. Surprising. All right, moving on. So we're moving on to actionable items, and at this point, we can discuss those that were listed above. Approval of Resolution 2021-10 pertaining for airport improvement aid at Rhinelander, Oneida County Airport. I'll accept a motion. Oh, Matt's here? All right. Matt, go ahead and stand up and click that mic. Good to see you. And congratulations on the flight, man. That's excellent.
Thank you.
That is really excellent.
Sincerely, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of regional and community support, and we're exponentially grateful. So,
You know,
at
I
the
want
risk
to
of being redundant, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to take just a moment and actually congratulate him with a round of applause because of the work he's done out there at the airport. All right, moving on. Now,
Okay, well,
let's put the
Mr.
screws to
Mayor,
him.
members of the council, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. This is petitioning the Federal Aviation Administration and the State Bureau of Aeronautics for improvement aid. I'm just going to enumerate some of the projects we're looking at here in the near future because I think you guys will really be pleased. The first of which is we're going to have an automated parking revenue control system. We anticipate that'll go out for bid in May, so gone are the yellow envelopes. You'll be able to pay with a credit card, hopefully. We'll work with Wendy on that. The entry and exit roads are going to be replaced. We have a lot of pavement projects airside that'll be going on. HVAC in the terminal, which dates back to the Carter administration, will be supplanted. We're getting a new HVAC system, a new elevator, and then we're going to be doing some rehabilitation in the parking lot as well. New Jet A truck. CARES has given us very generously about $2 million this latest go around. I anticipate that we don't know the details some more. So needless to say, and I know you guys can relate, I've been on a 30-mile-an-hour treadmill for the past several months. We've got just so many things going on, all good things, but we're really moving ahead. When airlines are not adding additional flights and additional capacity in markets, we're not only getting additional capacity, but we're being coupled with new markets and new airlines.
Well, cool. I'd like somebody to warn those kids when I welcome them to adulthood. That means they better get ready to run. There's a lot of work ahead of us.
If I may be permitted to digress just slightly, I appreciate what you say regarding passion because, you know, I was out at that airport 25 years ago when I was their age riding my bike out there to wash an airplane or pump gas.
Absolutely.
And every day I wake up and I'm like, man, I just can't wait to see what I can do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We don't judge birds on how they swim. We let them fly.
Right. Yes.
Excellent.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-10 petitioning for airport improvement aid at Rhinelander, Oneida County Airport.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Matt. You can leave too. Welcome to adulthood. Go enjoy it. Approval of Resolution 2021-8 to apply for urban non-point source stormwater grant. Did you want to speak about that?
Mark may want to.
Mark, you want to talk?
So this urban non-point source grant application is for the development of a stormwater ordinance for the city. This resolution is just to get an authorized signature for the submittal of the grant. So it's just a formality for the grant application process.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-8 to apply for an urban non-point source stormwater grant.
Daniel, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Mark, you might want to stick around. You got more things on here. Approval of agreement with LifeLink 3 for interfacility transfers. Tom.
So LifeLink is currently based at the airport right now. They have a helicopter out there. They're doing 12-hour shifts. They're working on crew quarters so they can increase to 24-hour coverage. This agreement really covers more their fixed wing that they have based in Minnesota. If the weather's bad, which it is quite a bit around here, and we can't fly with a helicopter, us to transport patients where they need to go. This allows us to pick up their flight crew, take them to the hospital, pick up the patient, and return them to the airport. And it cleans up the billing process with this agreement. Instead of having them bill the patient, us bill the patient, us bill them, they bill the patient for everything that the patient would get billed for. We get paid every time whether the patient pays or not. That's pretty much what this is about. It also has some language in there for scene flights if we intercept with them. They have some language in there for if we need them to intercept with us and ride along with us, which we don't see ever happening, but there's language in there to cover us if it does. We had to adjust the rates because the rates they originally proposed to us, some of them were less than what Medicare reimbursement is, and we can't accept any kind of an agreement like that. It can cause trouble for us down the road.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion.
Sounds like a good thing. Rossing approval. Motion to approve agreement with Lifelink 3 for interfacility transfers.
Mikulowski, second.
Gerald.
I had a question about the the part that says if Lifelink isn't available, we can get somebody else to do it. And does that mean we need contracts with someone else of a similar nature?
Tom?
So we have a backup.
Yes.
And the contract works the other way. Apparently, if
for us,
we
if we're
have
not
to have an ambulance from outside the city involved, is that covered by existing mutual aid agreements?
Correct. Currently, if we're not available, Med 1 would be able to do it. If for the same thing, if the fixed wing or the helicopter, it says we'll make attempts to. So we have other helicopters in the area that would take their place if they're not available. But for us, we have Med 1, Med 8, Med 5. So we do have other ambulances through a mutual aid agreement through our dispatch center. If we're not available, they would be able to take those calls.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of the share ride policy compliance, Title 6. Yeah, I got to read Roman numerals.
So this is a cleanup item. Wendy's been more intimately involved, but going through a compliance audit of our shared ride taxi service. So looking back at the last number of years for compliance issues, this was one area that they wanted cleaned up. We've also got another one on here, the procurement policy, as well as another item from a cleanup. So again, when we take and touch federal dollars or state dollars, we've got to play by their rules and obviously the compliance audits that come along with it.
I'll accept the motion.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve share ride policy compliance Title 6.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Gerald?
Yeah, what are we actually doing here? Are we changing anything?
No, we're not changing anything. So it's just for compliance purposes, if there's a complaint or if there's a accessibility question that someone raises or concern about service, that we would then have a policy that governs those interactions that we have with our riders. So there isn't anything that we're necessarily changing. Again, we're adopting this on behalf of our shared ride taxi provider, who is contracted to do the work.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of the contract with Pitlick and Wick Incorporated for the 2021 Chip and Fog Seal.
So we solicited proposals from vendors on this, and we received 2 bids. Pitlick and Wick and Farner Asphalt submitted a bid. Pitlick and Wick was substantially cheaper, and the only thing I would draw your attention to is Steve and I are going to work out some more robust language as for the awarding of the contract. So it'll essentially be the legalese that, protects us and ensures that if there are issues with quality and workmanship, that we can withhold or retain a portion of that payment. So again, the concept here is at least just to award, give us the direction to award, and then we'll get a tidier contribution.
I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a contract with Pitlick and Wick Incorporated for 2021 chip and fog seal.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. Since there's no dollar amount on this yet, we'll accept that in the next portion when the contract really comes before you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of contract with pyrotechnics for the 4th of July fireworks. We do not have that in front of you, so we will pass on that until we have that. Approval of the award of a contract for Monaco Street LRIP resurfacing. Mark, you click the button. Thank you.
Just getting warmed up here. So Monaco Street was bid last week. Bid open was last week. We had 4 bidders on it. The recommendation letter, I believe, is in council's packet. Northeast Asphalt was a low bidder on this project. The project encompasses a 2-block area, Monaco Street from Calkins to Iverson. The concrete is in good condition. The city did some repair work on the concrete last year, so all the concrete is in good shape. The plan is to do a full depth pulverizing of the asphalt pavement, reshape the base course, and pave it back in 2 lifts. This, the funding for this comes from LRIP, Local Road Improvement Program. And there's a sunset date on this of June 30th to use this money. So this is going to be a fast track project. Northeast Asphalt is a very reputable contractor. They're the ones that they did the downtown, they've done Stevens Street, and they've done a lot of work in the community. So we would recommend award to Northeast Asphalt for the base bid of $95,875. I would also recommend awarding the supplemental bid item for $10,500. Supplemental bids are there just as a placeholder. We do not anticipate having to undercut this road. We do that in cases of soft subgrade. We're not anticipating this, but we want to be prepared for it. If it's not awarded, what'll happen is if we have to undercut something, we then negotiate the price with the contractor. When you negotiate a price with a contractor after it's been awarded and work has begun, those prices generally go up. So the supplemental bid item is really just for a pricing placeholder. So I would recommend both the base bid and the supplemental be awarded for $106,380.75.
I'll accept the motion and add the total to that if you can, so that
Rossing, I'd make a motion to approve the award of contract to Northeast Asphalt for LRIP resurfacing for the base bid and the supplemental bid.
Which totals?
Is that the $96,000 number, right?
$106,380.75.
Yeah, for the total amount of $106,000. What was the last number, Mark?
$380.75.
$380.70.
I have a motion.
Larson, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Tom?
If that hold doesn't get used up, it just goes right back to the city?
The
Goes back to the
LRIP.
state.
Right? Yeah?
Right.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to ask Mary to call roll because we're spending money.
Kelly,
Aye.
Ressing,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Approval of allocating $22,500 from Fund 435 to the purchase of a rear spreaders for the plow trucks. Dan's not here. Did you want to speak on that at all?
Yeah, this is actually a retroactive. Something happened between communication, I think, between the clerk and I, previous clerk and I, in getting this item to council. So it's a cleanup of an item that was supposed to be advanced to an agenda. But it was using the previous borrowing, as you see in there, for some of that. And I would also constitute some of this as a necessity from a schedule, a timing thing too. So just that's a little bit of background for you.
Holt, I will approve the allocation of $22,500 from Fund 435 to purchase rear spreaders for plow trucks.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Once again, I'll have you call roll just because there's a dollar amount, even though it was taken care of.
Okay. Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Kelly. Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Daniel. Aye. Russing.
Aye.
Ayes have, motion carries. Approval of Resolution 2021-7 regarding the DNR stewardship application for the Timber Drive Trail.
Again, this is a formality for the submission of the stewardship grant application. This is due May 1st, along with, or the purpose of this resolution is, again, to have an authorized signature. And that resolution also states that the city has the funds available, the matching funds for the project. Those are the two main things they're looking for in this resolution.
I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion, Daniel. Approval of Resolution 2021-7 regarding DNR stewardship application for the Timber Drive Trail.
Mikulowski, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have, motion carries.
If I may on that, just real briefly, application deadline May 1st, and then September-ish, September-October award, I think is what we're hoping for, with construction potentially next year.
Yeah, their typical is in the fall when they would award. With COVID last year, they didn't get around to awarding anything until Christmas time. So hopefully they get back in their regular scheduling. But construction has to begin on this project by June 30th of 2023.
And one other quick point of information, next week's HODEG Dome listening session, the stewardship program is currently slated for expiration this year. They've only been doing short-term reauthorizations and extensions. And I know Senator Felskowski has talked about her concerns about the program, but this is one that we certainly want to get reauthorized because it's going to, we stand to gain maybe 200,000, 50-50 grant from the program. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Approval of the Timber Drive Trail Maintenance Agreement with the Department of Transportation and the Town of Pelican.
Mark and I attended the town board meeting a couple of weeks ago and visited with those folks in the town of Pelican to talk about that area. You may or may not know, but on the some of that right of way is in the town of Pelican along the south side of Timber Drive. So the DOT, as part of the grant, requires us to come up with an agreement. As I'm sitting here about 7 o'clock, they sent an email and supported the grant, the application, and the maintenance agreement. So we're in a good spot, provided that there's a stipulation that there's no charge or maintenance to the town of Pelican, that we would take on that responsibility along there. Plus, there's also some questions about jurisdiction and that Steve is also, we're reviewing, but I just wanted to make those points.
We're not going to let him talk, though. Anyway, actually, we've had a good time speaking with our townships lately. It's been a good communication, so that's kind of cool. Gerald.
This is another one of the documents presented to us that says, see attached location map, but doesn't have one. And could you briefly describe what this amounts to? I noticed the length of it is blank also.
ahead.
Yeah, I believe it's a standard agreement that the DOT shared with us, so that's why we didn't fill it out completely. Plus, we weren't fully aware if Pelican was going to support the maintenance agreement, so hence why we haven't gone through the motions on it.
Well, can you, in your own words, describe what this looks like in reality?
Mark, I'll have you address it.
Yeah.
So the town of Pelican has right-of-way that starts between Woodland Drive and Timber Heights Drive and extends out to the bypass. Little spotty, there's some city right-of-way within that. Part of this stewardship grant application and the award is dependent on the city having either ownership of the location of that path or an agreement with the owners, Town of Pelican, and a little bit of DOT right-of-way that path will sit on. So this agreement just needs to state that the city is going to maintain it, and the DOT and Town of Pelican will allow that path to be there for a minimum of 25 years. So that just it adds value to the grant funding, knowing that they're going to see the full life of that path. But it's just the south side of Timber Drive, starting between Woodland and Timber Heights, going out to the bypass is the extent of that.
Thank you.
Rossing, I'd make a
That
motion.
doesn't seem to be what it says. That's my problem.
Rossing, I'd make a motion to approve the Timber Drive Trail Maintenance Agreement with the Department of Transportation and the Town of Pelican.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of the procurement policy. This is a policy, not an ordinance, and so first steps.
Very similar, as I mentioned, to the Title VI compliance. This was also flagged, and obviously for lots of reasons, a procurement policy is of benefit. So if it wasn't for the shared ride taxi, we still would be pursuing some form of a procurement policy. Steve's also done his review, and we've had some discussion about sort of the handoffs and exchange in there, because it, who has the authority and under what limits and all that good stuff. So I think, at this point, it's a lot cleaner than what our current policy has been, or lack thereof, frankly. And our ordinance has some language about procurement as well. And so we're going to look to bring that ordinance before the council in the future, additionally here. We're now just drafting a procurement policy. Yeah, that's what's in your packet. Mm-hmm.
This wasn't included in what it takes
I'm
to
sorry,
be a
I
bill
emailed
in
it
the
out
song.
I emailed it out on Friday. Yeah. It was in your email with the
Yes.
the minutes of the planning commission.
Just for the benefit, we're going to tighten this policy up, but we really need to have the policy so that we get our funds from the federal government. But I want the council to know that this policy is going to be a lot more in depth, because right now there's just too many open-ended phrases in it. And I've already written those up, so if you read this and think that any employee can just go out and buy anything they want, which you could be read that way, it's not going to happen. So.
Eileen.
So we're going to be able to see the final draft before we, thank you.
Absolutely. And there'll be ordinance changes that also happen because of that. But this is just the first step to get the ball moving.
Motion
David?
to approve procurement policy.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of the building inspector and zoning administration position description.
I'll have Doreen come up here to the podium to support me on this one. As you heard earlier in our meeting, Tom is retiring, and so this is the necessity in terms of what the next step is currently. department and inspection department are pretty wound together, and this would actually involve an unwinding of that. We're going to be working on bringing the job descriptions forward of the assistant fire chief and fire chief at the next council meeting for some modifications and updates. But so at this point, now that we've transitioned with Teresa moving to the clerk's office, as well as Tom's departure, we're going to be left without a building inspector. So Doreen and I have worked together to create this job description to make this person responsible for ordinance complaints and violations, zoning administration, some land use planning, obviously the building inspection, which comes inherently in the title. But so Doreen, maybe want to speak to the salary review and compensation information that you've sourced.
Yeah, so the way we comped it originally did not include the zoning administration piece. I went back and looked at it today, but I think overall we're going to be okay with what I'm presenting for your approval. And I ask you to keep an open mind, though, is if we find limitations to bring in qualified candidates, then we should revisit it, but I think we're going to be okay. So with that being said, I think it's a good starting point, and we can shake it out a little bit further with comps if I need to go deeper into specific zoning responsibilities to see if there is more compensation we need to add to the position. That I would say do it at that time, but I think it is a very good starting point for compensation.
Questions?
Gerald?
Yep, Gerald.
I have two questions. One is, are we asked to vote to create a position as well as to establish the description? Are there both parts involved in what we're asked to do tonight? And the other question is, if we have the money for this position and can't afford a fire chief before fall, wouldn't we be better off to put this money into getting a fire chief sooner, especially now that the assistant or the interim is retiring?
So to answer your first question, yes, the action is twofold: establishing the position description and the compensation associated with the position, and we'll place it in the salary schedule because I don't think your memo had the actual grade in it, but we'll get that placed in there. As it relates to, I guess, the bigger question around priorities, we can't go without a building inspector because we have contracted townships that we also provide building inspection for. Additionally, we also are the delegated status by the state for commercial building inspection. So all of those responsibilities are I would say and argue just as important as having the fire chief position filled. So part of the placement and selection of the fire chief is in the hands of the Police and Fire Commission, which we met with last Friday to talk about these questions, the very question you've raised in terms of when are we going to be able to fill the position. And it sounds as if there will be a desire, there is a desire to look at filling the assistant fire chief position that will then become the acting or interim chief upon Tom's departure on the 5th or so of June. So those items are also being concurrently worked through and worked on. And Wendy, Doreen, and I are meeting to discuss the financial aspects of affordability when we can make these placements and selection. But in terms of procedures, we want to get this position created. We want to be able to recruit for it and place it with some hope of overlap. I would also mention that the inspection department is separate from the fire department budgetarily. So that's part of the other consideration as to why now and why this position.
I just want to add, I'm in favor of separating them. That's not the problem. I just wondered where we should be putting the money now.
Right.
Yeah. Correct. We also will be working on succession planning for almost every position that's in our city, which is something that's been long overdue and not looked at when it comes to our capital budgeting. As far as that far out replacing equipment, we also will look at how we handle our workforce. It's something that we've not really put a lot of value on, and recently has come to the forefront.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the building inspector zoning administrator position description.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Approval of cooperation service agreement between the USDA, APHIS, and the city for beaver abatement program in an amount not to exceed $1,500. Eileen, so childish.
Larson, I'll make a motion to approve the cooperative service agreement between the USDA and APHIS and city for beaver abatement program in the amount not to exceed $1,500.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do.
Gerald?
Is this Spring Lake again or somewhere else?
One more time.
Spring Lake.
Oh, Spring Lake or somewhere else? Is it just for Spring Lake or somewhere else? I'm gonna guess if we move them out of Spring Lake, we might be moving them somewhere else and getting rid of them there. Tom, go ahead.
I don't typically deal with this, but I was involved when they first took over. When Tony was street superintendent, he found they were, it's much cheaper and they're much more efficient. We'd have to take equipment out to rip dams out, and they take care of the problem before it happens. So the city can identify issues like Slaughterhouse Creek or Spring Lake Road, and they'll go wherever you tell them to.
When you say they take over, you weren't talking about the beavers, right?
Yeah, no.
Tom?
Are you going to be trapping beavers with them?
No.
No.
We used to have a process for that, but you can't do that anymore, so.
Ah, okay.
I just
Ryan.
had one brief question. I know we've approved this in the past. Do you personally or somebody from the city have to tell them where to go to make sure that we're spending our $1,500? That never got answered in previous years that I've been
No,
here.
by now, they've got a pretty good system, I believe, and the problem is when they keep an eye on it, but if it gets too late, removing dams from under that bridge on Old 8 Road is a real hassle. So they head it off before it gets to that.
All right. We're spending money, so if there's no further discussion, please call roll.
Anderson,
Aye.
Ressing,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Approval of Resolution 2021-9 supporting support for a strong state and local partnership. I think this speaks for itself.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-9, support for a strong state and local partnership.
Daniel, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Approval of the bills and claims in the amount of $1,201,902.46. It's a bargain month.
I will make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $1,201,046.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do we have them to sign?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have them here. I'll give them more to you.
My bad. I've been busy, sorry. Go ahead and call roll while I sign these here.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Ressing,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Kelly.
Ayes have it, motion carried, bills are paid. That brings us to introduction of unfinished business. Resolution 2021-6, the vacation of Hill Street, like Hill Street Blues. I'll have you speak on that, Steve.
whole purpose of this is you have a very specific procedure that has to be followed when you abandon a street that's been dedicated. And all this is doing is following that very specific procedure. You've voted on this as far as a concept several times, because this is where they're getting ready to build those apartments over on Hill, well, not, it's not Hill Street. You know where it is.
Between,
It's what timber is on the top, and the side street is
Oneida.
Oneida, correct. So if you just think of the intersection of Timber and Oneida, that's that area. But there was a street that went across there, and there's a very specific statutory procedure on how we abandon and how we give notice and everything. And I just am trying to bring this in line with that procedure. The Planning Commission had a public hearing on this. No one objected, and so we're at the point where the council needs to take action.
Rossing, I'd make a motion for resolution 2021-6, vacation of Hill Street.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss the borrowing from 2021, the scope.
So this item kind of parlays from the Ellers discussion earlier at our meeting. Obviously saw a schedule in there, proposed timeline, and we're still working through a full listing of items for the 2021 borrowing. We've got a pretty good handle on it, but we obviously are still waiting for a few things from staff. So we'll bring the full preliminary list to you all at the next council meeting. And then from there have some discussion around prioritization. I don't have a full tally. I know we're planning to borrow about $1 million. So, we're, again, IT consolidation being probably the top one, new ambulance, police, road squad, and then there's some other parks and other items in there as well. So again, we'll bring that up at the next council meeting.
That list, just so we understand too, was driven also by our department heads and the work staff as far as needs of replacement. So we get an idea of that. Moving on, there are no action items. Future agenda items, anybody want to add anything? Yeah, Tom.
I've had several city residents ask me to bring to the city council to start a discussion on establishing a brush drop-off spot. I know Alderperson Larson had mentioned that a while ago, that would be a great idea, and I'm actually getting people asking for that now. So I'd like to start the discussion of the procedure to get that established.
Perfect. I know it was discussed in department head meetings during the time too, but it kind of, with the season, comes and goes, and went that way. We have one tomorrow morning, so thank you. Nothing else? Adjourn.
All I wanted to say is I've got the